true liberation really comes from a union with the unknown and a deep trust, in my opinion, a deep trust with life. Call it source, call it God, call it creation. But that, when we're able to pulse with the unknown and still feel safe and trusting and in our radiance, in our magnetism, that is true empowerment. That is what we're all looking for on some level, whether we're aware of it or not.
I am very curious about your trajectory. Because I did not know, I mean, when we were talking, I was like, okay, you were teaching French and you loved it.
I loved it.
And how did you get here? Did you expect this? I mean, you're so embodied in this work. I think I was so shocked because I just, I don't know. And how your business was just a couple years ago. Tell me how you landed here.
Wow. It's been a journey, honestly.
Yeah.
It's been a journey, Christina, a really beautiful one that I had no idea that this was God's plan for me. And gosh, I feel like I have one of those stories that a lot of people can resonate with, where it's like, I did everything by the book. I was like, let me do the things that we're told are going to bring us happiness. So I was like an athlete, I went to school, the best university, got my master's, all the things. And I started teaching and I was like, gosh, this is well, really not paying very much.
Yeah.
So much so that I was still having to bartend on the weekends. And I was like, this doesn't really feel like a vibe. And I just wasn't feeling fulfilled at that time. And so I had a huge catalyst, actually, that kind of started this whole journey. It was actually my dog passing that I had from the age of 10 to 25. So we were like allies, we were just, and when he passed, I was just like, you know what, there's no reason for me to stay in Montreal anymore. Montreal has given me, it's my hometown. It has given me everything. I squeezed everything out of it. I'm in a toxic relationship. My dog passed. I have other than my family here, I have no reason to stay. And so at the time, I was not connected to my intuition or all these things, but I had the intuition to move to California. And the message I had got from my dog's spirit at the time was go fly. I'm gone now. And I'm going to be with you forever. Ooh, it's going to make me tear up. And so I did that. I took a huge leap of faith. I was 26 and I was just a little baby. And I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of that version of myself.
Yeah.
And I booked a one-way ticket to San Diego, a city I had never been to. I'd never lived in the U.S.
Wow.
So it was brand new. I didn't know a single soul. And I sold all my things. I left my job and I had 6 pieces of luggage, a motel room, and that was it. I didn't have a job, a car, a friend.
That is brave.
Yeah.
How were people in your life responding to that? Were people supportive? Were people confused? Were they concerned?
So my parents, my mom and my stepdad were really supportive because I felt like they saw I did all the things by the book, and I was like, I'm teaching and bartending. What the fuck is going on here? And for whatever reason, I was like, I just feel the call. I need a big shift, a big change. So they supported, and they actually came with me to help me kind of get settled in the first couple of weeks. And then I was kind of off on my own. But literally, life at the time rewarded me tenfold because within 3-4 weeks tops, I got a car. I ended up in one of the nicest neighborhoods in San Diego, in La Jolla, in a condo that was far greater and more beautiful than anything I'd ever lived in Montreal. And I landed this teaching job, teaching French again, but this time in an amazing elite private school. And it was like the dream job, like the sweetest kids ever. And not to mention it doubled my salary, just by virtue of moving.
Yeah.
Like it was just like life just giving so abundantly in that moment. And it was exciting. It was really, really exciting. And truthfully, I loved it so much at this school. Every part of me felt like I was going to retire there. And you know, I had a few more catalysts in terms of my own awakening and spiritual journey. And one of them was reconnecting with an old friend who, you know, David Lyon. And that it just brought back online for me at the time, the magic of life. And it was something that even when I had moved from Montreal to California, I had kind of stopped believing in love. And I didn't know it at the time, but I felt kind of jaded. And essentially I had come to the conclusion that the best thing you could get out of life was to be like an aspiring trophy wife. Yeah.
Wow. Wait, can we pause? I have a couple questions. This is because I'm like, well, first of all, what was your relationship with your intuition like at that time? Like, because you say like you got a message from your dog that passed. At the time, did you know it was that?
I did know.
Okay.
I did know. I mean, I just felt it. That's pretty much the simplicity at the depth of which I felt it. Yeah. Obviously, this me can put it into has a different depth to that experience, but it was more like I felt it. Okay. And when I felt that feeling of like, go now, like you're free, it's all I needed. Okay. It was all I needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like at the time, was your channel, would you say like your channel was open?
No.
Like, you weren't connected in that way yet or aware of that?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's also something that's really unique too, is like, I don't have one of those stories of like, when I was a child, like I was already communicating with angels and guides, and like, no, I was like a really like normal, playful kid that like, you know, and for me, that really came online later on when I really started devoting myself to knowing myself.
We're going to get to that. I want to go back to this love thing. Yeah. So when you say you felt like you weren't sure if you believed in love, tell me more about that. Like that love, like in terms of, does that mean I don't know if I will be in a relationship where I feel love? Does that mean I don't believe that love itself exists? Like, what does that mean?
At that time in my life, I feel like I didn't realize how much of my dharma had to do with love. Yes. And like I really didn't realize that. Yeah. And because, you know, in my 20s, I was such a devoted girlfriend, and I loved being in relationship, and they were all extremely challenging. And the conclusion that I came to in that moment came from like feeling like I gave everything. Like I just poured everything on the table. And for some reason that didn't equal a man who chose me, a man who wanted to be with me, who wanted to build a relationship, a life together. So the conclusion I came to at the time was that, well, love must probably not really exist. At least the love that I was hoping for, you know? And so that conclusion brought me to another conclusion, was like, well, if, you know, I can't have the fairy tale love that I really thought could exist, even pouring myself years into a relationship, then I guess the next best thing is safety and being provided for. So I was, you know, looking into being this like aspiring trophy wife, even looking into maybe getting a boob job. And because I was like, what else is there? You know?
I'm literally shocked.
I know. I know most people are, because they're like, what? You?
Yeah, like that's so not your energy at all. I mean, that's a really powerful story, like transformation though. And I think such a beautiful example of what it looks like to live your dharma, and like how you go to the depths of the lessons you're here to teach, you know, really. Yeah. So you're at that place. Is that when you reconnect with David?
That is when, yes, that is when I end up reconnecting with Lion, David Lion. I call him Lion. It was one of those moments that in retrospect, I feel like our souls had like an agreement of like, when this sparks, you are going to remember. And for me, that was that moment where we had already known each other from way back when. And at the time when I had moved to San Diego, I was very lonely because I was, doing the aspiring trophy wife thing. And when he reached out via email and I was like, listen, I'm living in California right now. We kind of left it at that, but then I was coming home for the holidays and I was like, I am in dire need for some connection over here. Like, I do not have friends yet in the US. And we ended up just going out, which at the time I didn't know, but to him it was a date. And I felt like I was re-meeting someone who at the time I knew when we were in our early 20s had a lot of ego. And all of a sudden I was like meeting this like magical version and he started talking to me. It was so significant the moment, it's going to sound crazy, but the moment he started talking to me about fairies and angels and like, it's like something lit up in me. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Yeah. Like I knew there was something more to this life than find a job, like, marry someone, have kids and die. Like, and that was it for me. Like it just turned something on in my being and I just knew and felt it like in my heart and my bones. I was like, I knew magic exists. Like I knew there's so much more. And because he was embodying it, I felt it. And that became the catalyst to the beginning of my own awakening and truly my own journey in really understanding what it meant to even love me. Because it's like through that, I understood. I was like, wow, I've been pouring so much into the men who've been in my life, but without ever really knowing what does it mean to even love me? Like, what are my needs? And so, it started my own journey of self-love and pouring into myself. And it took on many different seasons, but in that season, it was one of like, I just remember like waking up in my place in La Jolla and like putting music on and like treating myself every day. Like I was like, how do I want to treat this queen? Yeah. Like, what does it mean to like bring me out to lunch? Yes. And I would just like, look at the menu and I still didn't have too many friends. I didn't have a single friend yet. And I would look at the menu and I'd be like, oh, like, what do I want to choose? And it's almost like talking to myself, like as though I had my own inner husband who was like, babe, you order whatever you want. Like, you are a queen. And there's something in that made my energy, the love I was pouring in, obviously made me a lot more magnetic in that way. And then I started to attract incredible friends and community. That I guess I'll pause there. See if
well, I want to unpack this because I think the topic of self-love can feel very fluffy for people and it can feel very intangible for people. And it's obviously something a lot of people struggle with and really want to activate fully. And you can feel it as you talk and as you embody. And I feel like with you, it's so much deeper. It's so pure. The other night you said when we were together and in the middle of a sentence, like my devotion to love. And that was so profound for me of just the energy around like I am devoted to love, like as I don't even know, like love as a consciousness, as all that is. And it brings this depth to the topic of self-love that I was like, wow, that is like rich. It's like, I am devoted to love, and it reminded me of, when people say like, which it could be the same thing and it is, but like, my devotion to God saved me. And yeah, same thing, but there's a different frequency to like my devotion to love, you know? And I want to kind of like unpack that, because I feel like it's that, the way you say that matters. Like, I am devoted to love, and that pathway to self-love feels just so rich and so like concrete to me. I'm very interested in that, of like, what is that journey of like, I'm in devotion to love itself. How did that unfold for you?
You know, it really unfolded in layers. It unfolded in layers and in seasons. It definitely started at that point in time, which felt amazing. It felt really empowering to finally learn to treat myself the way I had wished that my ex-boyfriends had treated me. That was already one layer, I would say. And in the many seasons for myself, in my own expansion and my own embodiment of devoting myself to love, has been looking in the places in my life within myself where I hold any form of separation and unifying there. Because that's the tricky thing about being a human and this whole experience, is sometimes our own idea of what love is already distorted, and it's like almost being able to like catch that is a thing. It's thing.
Very tricky.
It's very tricky, and we kind of like trick ourselves. Like there's like sneakiness with it.
It's very sneaky.
And so part of my own continued growth and expansion and embodiment in that has been to pulse with life and within myself, and essentially feel where there's separation. And separation here, you know, if that doesn't like ring a bell, or if it doesn't mean anything to whoever's listening, it's like feel into wherever there's pain, wherever there's hurt, wherever there's contraction. That is where there's some form of separation or belief that's happening, that's creating the belief that you're separate from your desire, from love. And having the willingness and the courage to just be with that it sounds simple, and it is simple in its essence, but that can be a whole thing to actually deepen wherever we're feeling that we're like at the edge of our own capacity to be with ourselves, because we're like feeling conflicted between, do I do this or do I do that? If I, you know, do I tend to his needs or my needs? Whatever the thing is, there's a point of, there's a breath that's wanting to happen, but it can only, and that breath is what allows unity, aka more love, more truth to penetrate. But that can only happen in the willingness, the courage to be with those big feelings. And it can, and that even happens in layers as well. That's the thing, you know, that can happen in layers as well. And I feel like that practice and devotion to always meet my own edges or places where I'm feeling, for example, where I might go into control, into protection. Those are pings letting me know there's something more here. And there's an opportunity for greater integration with more of myself, so that I can come into greater union with all that is, with my reality, with myself, starting with myself, and then with whatever I might be moving through. So, you know, truly feeling something at its depths is quite honestly a superpower. It's a superpower, and and the mind can sometimes think, oh, but I've done that already, and I still feel the thing. And it's like, that's amazing. I have compassion for you. Yes. And there's more, and that's okay. You know,
I'm glad you're bringing this up, and you might be able to explain it better than I can. I feel like I've been having this conversation quite a bit recently with people, where the block or the expansion, all of it is like, you got to feel it. there's more to feel. And they're saying, I have felt it. And I'm like, no, you haven't. Like, because I can feel that you haven't. I can see it. Right. And that's very difficult for people because they think that they really have. How do you help them? Like, how do you recognize if you actually have or if you haven't? And then what do you do if you think you have and maybe it's being reflected to you, I haven't, and you're like, I don't know how to feel it more deeply. Because that's what I hear from people. They're like, well, I feel like I felt it as deeply as it can. How do I go in deeper?
I feel like a couple of things. I'll share a first part to answer that question. I had my own inquiry specifically around like healing, merging those parts. And one of the visions that I received that Spirit was showing me was this analogy of these bowls, basically, because it helps to also kind of understand what's actually happening within ourselves, because it is kind of frustrating. So like, I felt the thing, or I did it last year. Why is it coming up, again? And the analogy I was given, it was like kind of showing me like, here's a bowl, it's this size, and this is the capacity that you currently have in terms of what you're conscious of. Who you are is infinite. It's like beyond the bowl, basically. But what happens is like, you may have felt the degree to which you are capable and aware and conscious to feel at the capacity of your current identity, meaning this size of a bowl, right? And the thing is, as soon as we receive perspective, we expand, even in just this conversation, right? There's something more happening, meaning our bowl is expanding. And so the visual they were giving me was you become a bigger bowl. And the thing with becoming a bigger bowl is you're now feeling deeper layers of something that could have happened in the past, for example, but now you're feeling it on a deeper level that the previous bowl had already felt to the depth. So in essence, it's like, well, it is true. Like, you have felt it to the degree of your own capacity. But as your capacity expands, so does your level of awareness of the depths that whatever that experience really brought up in you. So I share that, like, when I received that, it brought in so much compassion is what it allowed for. Because I was like, you know what, this rhetoric around like, oh, here I am again, here am I. Here not.
Yeah.
There is no again. Yeah. As opposed to, so it's like, it feels like that perspective, already framing it from that perspective, that like, babe, you're experiencing new layers right now because you're expanding in this bitch. Like, you're winning right now. Yeah. That is why this thing is pinging you again, because you've been busy doing workshops, listening to Christina the channel, like taking her trainings. Things are, and then all of a sudden you're like, God damn, that thing that really like hurt me in the past is coming up. And then the mind is the one who's like, here we go again. I thought I felt this. And it's like, honey, you did feel it. Like, you fucking did feel it to the best of your ability. And your expansion is also your deepening and the expansion. And so you're feeling deeper. So I feel like already receiving the invitation to feel deeper as a reflection of your expansion and how much you are winning at life right now is like a completely different reframe. And it feels like, all right, like, let's fucking go. Like, let's fucking go. Like, I'm ready for this. And I do feel like so that feels like part one, like the framework that I feel has been supportive, that was, shared with me. And I would say part two to that is noticing where you're feeling from as well. Because there's sometimes when I'm working with my clients, there's a distinction that isn't always so obvious in the moment, that you can be almost like thinking about how you felt.
Yes.
That's a really big difference between thinking about how you felt versus feeling the like, that is present there. And if you're not feeling the like, I feel like I'm going to fucking die at this point, if I go any deeper, then you're not fully feeling, especially if it's something like big, obviously. So noticing also just within ourselves to track, am I thinking about how I'm feeling, or am I actually like really somatically going there? Because I'll tell you one thing, and I've just gone through like so many deaths in this last like eclipse season. The somatic experience of really going there, like I am sweating when and this is like me receiving a session, for example, with a mentor, and I'm sweating. I'm just like, there's so much energy moving at this point. I'm like, that's what that feels like. Yeah. And that's why I also, I have so much compassion for our human experience and having the courage to do that, because it is a big thing. And that's why I feel like truly having the courage to feel is a superpower.
I 100% agree. And a lot of people do think about how they're feeling instead of feel how they're feeling. And I know for me, felt so strongly and intensely when I was younger that I rewired it and then just started thinking it. And I know that process for myself of feeling again, and how liberating that was, and also how scary that was and hard that was. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that rewired that, right? To your point. So for people who are like, that's resonating, I definitely think about how I'm feeling and I'm not feeling. What are some things that can help them start to feel?
That's a great question. I would say starting with the intention to connect with the vulnerability in your heart. Like even just having that intention is already bringing you deeper there, and trusting it. That's another thing. Trusting that having the intention, because the truth is we do feel. The mind kicks in because there's a fear of like, what will happen if I actually feel this? Yeah. And so even just noticing where your energy's at in your body and choosing to create a space. And I do this for myself. Like I'll start a fire in my fireplace. I'll put music. That's a huge thing. Like put music on that'll actually trigger the feeling.
Yes.
Like that's loving to do that, to do it in a ceremonial way. Put music, have candles, etc., and like let yourself be moved into that feeling. For me recently, I was moving through a lot of self-forgiveness around actually relationships in the past, and there was a lot coming up, and that's exactly literally what I did, because I too was like, God damn it, I have felt so much here. Yeah. And there's still more. Yeah. And really giving that part of ourselves that is hurting, that has a voice, ultimately that's afraid, that's ultimately what's happened, that doesn't feel safe. Giving that part of ourselves spaciousness, and not treating it like some like TikTok, gotta get this done so I can feel free. It's like, so the same way that you would treat a child who's crying, you wouldn't be like, are you done? Like I heard you. Like are you done crying? Like no, you would spend the time that's necessary to be with them, to feel them. And so that's what I would say to that, is to set an intention within yourself, and then even more so, set your space to be supportive of that, whether it's like in the evening, or maybe it's during the day for you with music, etc., or perhaps it's with someone that you really trust, and the frequency of that person feels even like they have a bigger capacity to hold what you're having trouble holding, that's another way. Because even just being in the presence of someone who has that capacity will activate it in you. Like that shit will just start coming up. Like that has happened to me so many times.
Well, I think that's part of all the magic of having like our friendships. We were talking about this, just having such beautiful connections in person. And I always say, like, whenever I need just like a hit of inspiration or like good energy, I just call up a friend for coffee, right? And what you activate within each other, it's exactly what you're describing energetically, of like, we're just expanding each other's capacities. And I'm seeing maybe something that I thought I visited before, like at a deeper layer inherently, you know? And I feel like that every time, I mean, like, you know, we go to dinner and it's like, I just grew.
Oh, literally.
Yeah, right?
Literally.
I love that. I'm curious, are you open to sharing about like what these layers recently have been for you around this self-forgiveness and relationship? I'm curious.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And very much completely connected to your question earlier around what has my own journey to becoming this version. Because it sounds great, like to be like, wow, like I started loving myself, taking myself on dates, like learning like how to love myself. And that's a great layer, and it's ever expanding. It's like truly infinite. And for me recently, what was coming up was around the version of me, even the awakened version of me in the last, like, you know, how long has that been? 10 years since my spiritual awakening. Even within that period of having that devotion, I've had plenty of blind spots. And the thing about, you know, talking about the bowl analogy is this version of the woman that I am, that has this size bowl, that has this depth of awareness and also integrity and self-honor with herself, has been looking back at certain choices that I made out of fear, mostly out of fear of losing the relationship with my partner, and how I chose to abandon myself in those moments. And for the woman I am today, again, with the more awareness, more consciousness, it was extremely challenging for me to look back and be like, be with that. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Moments where, you know, and I can give concrete examples, like moments where I did not feel, I didn't feel loved, cherished, appreciated, or safe in the relationship. And I still decided to engage in sexual intimacy unconsciously as a means to feel wanted, to feel the desire, to feel the love that I was looking for. Obviously, I wasn't aware of that at that time. It was kind of like a protection mechanism. Once again, you know, to the point, it was too hard for me to feel like, it was like I had to choose. Talking about separation, it's either, you know, I honor myself, but I risk losing the relationship, or I choose to just like manage myself, manage my own internal experience and hurt at the time, and almost like receive a temporary hit of the things I was really craving, like just feeling loved and ravished and desired and like someone significant. And this woman that I am has had a real big problem with that, looking back. And so I had to really let myself feel the deeper layers of pain that me back then couldn't feel, because her bigger fear was to lose the relationship, versus this woman's bigger fear is to betray herself.
Yeah.
Or to dishonor herself, or to dishonor her body, or to abandon herself. And so, you know, in my own journey of expanding and in my own devotion to love, it's brought more unity in including myself in what it means to love, especially in relationship. That's been my biggest dojo, you know? So that was quite the initiation for me, because it's certain things that, and choices that this version of me, it would just be the clearest, like, no, I'm not available for that. That is not in resonance. And I still had to permeate that there is a version of me that did make those choices. So what I'm speaking to earlier, where I set the stage for myself with my fireplace and the music and all the things, it was to just feel the depths of how painful that was. And in that, letting myself go there also allowed me, it's almost like that breath that I was speaking to, it also allowed me to receive more of the innocence and compassion that of that version of me. You know, she was really doing her best, and truly, it's like she was way more terrified of losing her man than abandoning herself. So it's like I have compassion there, and it's taken me, you know, some deep moments to be with myself there, and to be truly transparent. I have a feeling that there are new versions of myself that are going to feel this even deeper at a later time, and I welcome it. It's a representation of the bigger bowl that I'm at. But yeah, that's an example for me of something I've been moving through, and that I also used support. You know, I had support. I was doing sessions, and I was being held in a space where I knew that the person could hold a bigger space than I could for myself in this exact context. And that allowed it to also just to move, to cry, to be witnessed and loved. And ultimately, you know, when you move all of that feminine energy of feeling, that's when the masculine energy of greater clarity and truth really settles in.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure so many people are resonating with that and feeling that. Why do you think this layer of this came up right now? Like, what triggered that? Because you're describing it like you're reflecting on, you know, things from the past. So I'm curious, what triggered that? Is that connected to your move?
It feels connected to a lot of things, to my move, but my move feels connected to my evolution. It feels connected to where I'm at and who I'm meant to really step into at this point of my evolution. And that has manifested, yes, in moving back to California, getting my own place in Laguna Beach, but it's also like this phase, this season of my own evolution has called me forth to clean up. And I want to say for me in particular, it has been to strengthen my own relationship to the divine masculine. And that includes having the willingness to hold myself where it feels like I'm a hot mess.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, it feels like a piece of the puzzle of where my own evolution was calling me forth. And I could feel it because it was very edgy inside of me, and it kept coming up. That's a sign. You know, when something keeps coming up in our field, it's a sign that it's asking for our presence, our love, our devotion. And that was definitely, it had been present for me for quite some time, like years of trying to move through the forgiveness. And I feel this time around, I really went there at a depth that I hadn't previously, and it created so much spaciousness in my field, so much spaciousness, and so much more love too could enter.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people, what they say, what I hear is like they're just scared to feel that intensely. I don't know if people say this to you too, like I'm scared to really let myself cry that hard because I think I just might not stop ever. What do you say to that person?
Well, first I would have compassion for them. Compassion in that fear, ultimately. And I would say that courage is such a big piece of this. And that's why I always, even anyone who enters in a container of mentorship with me, I always let them know, like, that is a prerequisite in working together. Is courage and devotion. Because otherwise we're going to stop at your fears. That's what's going to end up happening. So those are prerequisites. So first having loving compassion for yourself, for the fear, because the fear is something too, and it's worthy of being held in love and reassurance. Like first stopping, giving that part of yourself some love and reassurance. And when that feels a little bit softer, because that's a thing, people's relationship with their fears is like, plow through, like just like go, and it's like, well, no, it's like a part of yourself that's afraid in this moment. So make some pause there. Like don't keep going. Let me fucking feel this thing. It's like, well, let me feel what's present first, which is the fear. Let me give some love, some reassurance. When I feel that a little bit softer, then I would say, then keep going. Trust yourself. Keep going. And then if you need to stop a little bit, stop. Like be kind, be gentle with yourself. This gets to take the time that's perfect for you. And no one gets to say how long that is. And I feel the more love and compassion that you give yourself at every stage, no matter how scary it gets, the easier and more graceful it becomes. And when you do that enough times, you kind of realize like, oh, this is the game we're playing here. So that it becomes, I'm at a point where when I feel that, like I just feel like, oh shit, I'm at the edge right now. I'm like, let's go. Let's fucking go. Like I'm ready. Like because I know that there's just more truth, more unity, more spaciousness, more of who I am, more abundance in all forms on the other side of that, because I've done it so many times. So that's what I would say.
I love that. And when we look at like all the different energetic dynamics with feminine and masculine, I love the way you described it's the feminine that then opens up the space for the masculine. I think that's very interesting because I think a lot of people are trying to like masculine it and then the feminine comes through. So I think that's very interesting to me. I don't know if you have anything else to say around that, like with your own relationship with the divine, with your divine masculine.
My own relationship to how I move with the energies of masculine and feminine, for me personally, has been one where the feminine, meaning feminine energy to be simply felt. That, in my experience, is what sets the internal environment for safety inside someone. Because you can be sharing truth and amazing perspective, clarity, right? That masculine energy, it's not going to land if someone's not feeling safe. If there's a part of them that's like, let's just say, is like, I'm afraid of feeling, and you're just like, you're going to be great. You're going to receive more truth. That fear is unattended. So in my experience with myself and also with the clients I work with, really offering that love and compassion and that safe space. Safety is number one. That feeling of safety, and that comes through the feminine, that feels compassionate, loving, allowing. Like, it's okay. You get to hang out here, you know? There's no rush. We don't need to do the thing right now. We could do it tomorrow. We could do it next month. It's all good. And that the irony in that is that it allows it to come in way faster. That's the paradox.
Yeah. So
that's been my own relationship to feminine, masculine. And it's also personally how I like to be supported.
Yeah.
Because if I'm already like in a triggered state and I'm not feeling safe and someone's just offering, it could be brilliant perspective, it's not going to land because my inner little girl is like, I'm scared right now.
Same. Yeah. So. No, I mean, I totally resonate with that. So I had been on your summit, which it was like feminine radiance and magnetism. Was that the?
Yes.
And I want to connect these because when you're talking about feeling and opening up for more abundance. And I'm curious because, I mean, your path here is devotion to love and you embody that. And we talk about, feminine radiance and magnetism. Like, why does this all matter and how does this all connect? And really what I'm getting at is that deeper why behind that summit. There's a lot of really powerful conversations. And I think sometimes when people, like, it all just sounds buzzy. You know what I mean? And it's not buzzy. It's like there's a deep connection here and a deep path. And I would love to hear like kind of your why behind that and why that's been so transformational and like what was the purpose of bringing those conversations together?
I love that question. In essence, for me, specifically in serving the feminine and her radiance and magnetism, which ultimately I feel if you identify as a feminine being, that's innate, is wanting to feel our own shine, our own desirability, etc.
Yeah. And
what inspired that for me was my own journey in what I thought that how I believed I could generate the radiance and magnetism versus how it actually came through. And you can swap the words here, feminine radiance and magnetism with, love and abundance. You can swap it for anything. But essentially what inspired and still inspires me in inviting people into this incredible work is truly what it allows for in terms of, the contrast of fighting for what you want, working at it, trying to like control your environment so it can finally be how you want it, versus going within. And truly a shift in perception is a miracle in a sense, because a shift in your internal perception is a shift in your reality completely. And it can happen like that. It could be the same thing, same house, same home, same job, same everything. Shift in perception is a shift in your whole reality, even if technically nothing has actually happened. Yeah. Nothing, but yet everything has happened. So that's something for me that I feel so powerful, so passionate about, because it's been so powerful for me, and having had the immense opportunity and sacred responsibility truly to have been a mentor or to facilitate or to lead or to be even invited on other incredible, brilliant facilitators' summits as well, is an opportunity for me to not only be that message, that frequency of resonance. So even if someone doesn't fully realize that that's really what they're seeking, they can feel it, but to also get to witness the just complete transformation that's possible when our point of attraction is focused from the inside out. It completely shifts everything, because the abundance of the shine, the magnetism that is coming through from the inside out is now gets to be reflected through community, through joy, through connection, through true intimacy, through all the things that actually really fucking matter in this life, like really fucking matter. And yeah, that also includes financial abundance. It really, really does. It's not separate. So I would say that's the essence of why I feel really passionate about it.
I love that. Well, when you talk about like going from the inside out, that's in contrast to what are other people doing? Can you paint that picture for people?
Totally.
Like, what does that look like? What does that mean?
I mean, the layers of unconscious control that our collective is operating on, and I'm including myself in this, is big.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things, I mean, it's like you don't need me or you to go to tell you how to hustle and use your willpower and control and like to go out there. There's a whole world. The whole world is built for that. And so to me, it's like the contrast is if you have been going about that way, which by the way, you can create a lot in that way. It's just, how are you going to feel? Are you going to feel fulfilled, abundant, connected, overjoyed? That's the difference. And so you can go about trying to create your life in that way through really their mechanisms of attempting to control your inner reality, your external reality. But truly the only thing that ever really perpetuates is deep feeling of unsafety within, because you're always in a state of like, self-management, self-control, or control of the environment. True liberation really comes from a union with the unknown and a deep trust, in my opinion, a deep trust with life. Call it source, call it God, call it creation. But that when we're able to pulse with the unknown and still feel safe and trusting and in our radiance, in our magnetism, that is true empowerment. Because now you're not like, oh, so this thing happened, my husband said this, or like, oh my God, my job, or like, you're here, you're present, you're trusting. That to me is rooted in true power. And again, call it feminine radiance, call it abundance, call it love, call it source. But to me, that is what we're all looking for on some level, whether we're aware of it or not.
Totally agree. And I think a lot of people are, I mean, this is the question. How do I shift my relationship with the unknown? How do I get to that place that you're just describing, of that type of relationship with the unknown? People struggle with that.
I mean, I struggle with that too. It's not like I'm not exempt of this. And we all, it's like the analogy of the bowl, we expand and so do our edges. So, and by edges, I just mean like the edge of your capacity to be with a moment, like what's coming up for you, insecurities, fears, doubt, you want to retreat, like whatever that is. But having the willingness to be, once again, it's coming back to the same things, to pulse in that moment of fear, of I don't know. It's okay. That's the thing. We're so conditioned to that if we don't know, it's like a bad thing, right? But even that feeling of I don't know what to do and I'm scared, that's something powerful to be with. And to even just...
can you love that? Talk about devotion to love,
literally.
Right? If I'm living in devotion to love, like in that moment, I'm in devotion to love with that fear, with that I don't know.
Yeah. And just let like space, like let's breathe space into this moment, because the mind, the ego wants to go into control. It's like, we don't know. Let us operate in a way so we can control and know. But that's not ultimately where you actually pierce through the veil and start to build a relationship with the unknown in that way. And yes, it's scary. And honestly, it continues to be scary. Like if you are just someone who's devoted to living at your leading edge, you actually begin to seek that. Yes. You begin to look for it in your field. Yep. And you're like, that over there, that scary thing that I'm really afraid to do, that's the direction I'm going in. Because you start to realize, like, holy shit, I just created an insane life that's beyond what I could have imagined. It's truly like what God wants for me. And that could not have happened if I would have been in a state of control, right? Because if I would have been in a state of control, then the maximum I could have created for myself, manifested for myself, is the limits of my own imagination.
Yeah.
But when you're in the unknown, as scary as it is, and I have compassion there even for myself when it feels scary, is that's when you're playing in pure possibility. That's when you're actually playing with God, with source creation, where anything's possible. And I always say this, these are my dreams, these are my desires, and I want what God wants for me. Because I know that in the unknown, there's so much better than whatever I could be in control and be like, this is what I want. And it's like, it's more like, this is what I'd love. And I'm open and I'm willing and I have the courage to be in whatever uncomfortable feelings are necessary to go there. And if I need to pause because I'm scared, I'm going to pause.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Be loving towards yourself, be kind, compassionate, and gentle, because it is a path that requires courage and devotion. And you can pause. You could take a little break.
Yeah.
You could and then come back to the edge. It's okay. It's okay.
When you describe it that way, what comes up for me is I'm like, wow, this relationship with the unknown is actually very much related to my willingness to receive love. Because that's a whole different energy to it, right? When it's, hey, when I recognize that God is delivering something to me that's so much greater, so much greater, then it's the same as how willing am I to receive that much love? And that just clicked something for me when you said it that way, because that's a very different way of looking at my relationship with the unknown. You know what I'm saying? It really is that, can I, and that's another aspect to look at with, devotion to love, self-love, but also can I receive that much love from people? Because how often do people contract when someone is pouring love into them? Yeah. And that's what's happening with dancing with the divine and the unknown. Can I let this much love be poured into me? Yeah. And I think that's a very interesting thing that you just connected for me through saying that way. So thank you for that.
I love that. You're so welcome.
With that, and I know this for you, connecting back to feminine radiance, I feel that radiance, that's a specific frequency for me. And you had said that the things that you felt like you thought were going to give you that didn't. And so what were the things that did?
What were the things that did? Everything that we've been sharing. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things. I would say everything we've shared already. And a huge part of that was also surrounding myself by epic community. And whether you're able to do that in person or even online, what you're consuming consumes you. So that was a huge part of my own journey, was literally surrounding myself with the Christinas of the world and being like, if she did it, that means I can do it. If this person over here is living what I call a free life, meaning they do what they do when they want to do, they live abundantly, then why can't I? Yeah. And that was a huge part of just cueing in. And, we do this, even we're doing it now, but downloading those codes, like being attuned to the frequency. And you can do this online too, you know, like really curating what you're consuming. And I feel that's such a huge part as well. Are you consuming or being around frequencies of people, be it friends, family, you know, social media, television, that inspire you and encourage you to come to that edge? Or is it the opposite?
Yeah.
That was a massively huge piece for me, along with everything else that we have shared. But that I cannot state enough. That was huge for me. And for me, that had to happen with me moving, because I also recognize, even when I go back home, don't get me wrong, I love my hometown, you know, and there's just a certain frequency. There's a certain collective frequency in different places. And for me, my journey led me to California. And I met hella people that were just like, wow, 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 wow. And as soon as I was seeing the wow in them, it was pinging that there's a wow in me too. This resonance that I'm feeling in their wow is pinging my own wow. Even if I'm not sure what my wow is, back then I knew there was something. And so that radiance, that magnetism was also activated by the incredibly magnetic and radiant people that I was surrounding myself with. And for that, I'm so grateful for my community. So grateful.
I'm so glad you call that out, because I think that's a really important part of loving yourself, devotion to love. It's like, what are the energetic nutrients that are coming into my field?
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. It's like, I know the times when people say you're glowing, and I'm like, I just got off an amazing call, or I was just with my friend and I feel so lit up and inspired. Like it is that. And I think that the relationship piece can be hard for people, because we're very attached, don't want to let people down, but then we have to recognize, like, where am I letting myself down, with that side of it too. But it really, you show up differently depending on who you're around.
Totally.
100%.
Yes. That's huge. If you can surround yourself by people who are a few steps ahead of you, just watch your life take off.
Yeah. And just to have like those reflection points and like mirroring back to you, even like the pieces of you that are incredible that you're not always seeing. And I think to help us go deeper into that unity you're talking about. And when we talk about separation, we were talking about this the other night, and I know we're both kind of going through our phases of like, how can I integrate more of myself and bring this all together? And I come back to your artistry, your vocal artistry, right? With your voice, your music. And I'm curious, like at this point in your journey, as that comes to the forefront again, I feel like more, and that's a big focus for you. Like, how does that connect to everything that we've talked about thus far with your journey? Like, how is that expanding your bowl?
Well, so my musical artist is the part of my identity that's like, hey, over here, there's a lot of fear. Over here, there's a lot of doubt in this area. There's a lot of insecurity. Like the parts of myself that I have been with and burned through in terms of becoming the woman I am, the facilitator, the mentor, etc. She started off like comparing herself, feeling insecure. I'm not like as good as to really recognize where I'm at right now. I don't feel that in that area. But the thing is, I recognize it with joy and excitement, because I recognize that the insecurities that I'm feeling, the comparisons that I'm feeling, that's literally my bigger self, my higher self, the unknown, right? Calling me forward, saying, hey, there's something here. I know you're scared. I know, but there's something here for you. I have an idea what that might be. I have my own like, wow, this would be great, God. And I don't know. But what I do know is all of those feelings, those frequencies of fear, of insecurity, of self-doubt, that's the direction that creates a whole new world, a whole new reality, a whole new version of the woman I am.
Yeah.
So I am 100% going in that direction. So that's where the connection is in that realm, and where the unity point is wanting to come through. So
when the devotion to love is doing all the things you're afraid of the most, right?
literally.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And it takes courage and devotion. It's like,
well, you embody that, and you are just the embodiment of like magnetism and radiance and love, and I feel that so strongly from you. It's really infectious and really healing. It's really, really healing, you know? So I'm so grateful for that, and thank you for going so deep with me today. I could talk to you forever. I want to hear, more about what's next for you. I know you're gonna make your album, right? Tell us, what's going on, what's coming next.
Oh wow. I mean, I feel like I'm working on many different projects that I'm not fully aware of yet.
I feel that for you. I was like, while you were talking, I was like, I need to just tell her like big things are happening. It's like right there.
Thank you.
I really feel it.
Thank you. I feel that in the field. And they're unknown. That's like the most transparent and true answer that I can really offer in this moment, is I feel big projects in my field that are unknown, and which I'm excited for and I'm moving towards. And in terms of the known ones, definitely my leading edge projects have to do with a greater, music, album, producing, songwriting, collaborating a lot. I feel like the field of collaboration is huge in my world right now, especially in person. And my service, like really like moments like this, like continuing to expand my service, to call in my soulmate clients, to work one-on-one. It's one of the most fulfilling and sacred opportunities I've ever had the space to occupy in someone's life and really hold such an intimate journey with someone. And it really feels like the bigger answer is a lot of unknown projects. Like
I love that. Yeah. I love that for you. Well, I'm excited for all of it, and I'm like so excited for this music, especially. Thank you, babe. Yeah, it's me too. Be epic, and I'm excited that I'm gonna move back and we can play more. Yes. We can collaborate.
Fuck yes, I so feel that.
Do some in-person events and stuff.
I so feel that.
Yeah, and help with the community too, because it's really needed. We talked about like with the event I threw that you were at, and like I just think we need a lot more, all different sizes and opportunities just to come together, and it'll help.
And the different flavors are meaningful. I share that even with the like the incredible community that I have that are like diehard Aveyah fans. It's like, go get a dose of Christina. Go get a dose of this other person, because they have different flavors that I'm not going to have as much, and I do the same, by the way. I go get my dose of Christina or whoever else. Yeah. So.
And that's what's fun about the collaboration. It's like, because we come together, our second desire, it's like we come together and it's like just these different energetic mixtures, and we create 100%. Something really amazing. So that's one of the most fun things for me about this, right? Because it's a totally different vibe with every person I'm connecting with, brings out a different part of me, a different frequency. So I love it. I'm excited, and I am just very grateful for you and everything you're doing in the world, and for sharing all of this. So thank you so much. It's great having you.
Thank you. So grateful.